Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear students. Today we have a next lecture and we start to study myology. As usual, I am together with you. My name is Dmitry Starchik, and I have my translation from Northwest State University named after Michnikov. I see today only two students. Thank you for being present today. And as usual, my question is about the quality of translation. Let me know how you hear me. I see Abanaub Malak from group 165A, and please let me know how you hear me. Myology is another subdivision of human anatomy, and this part of our discipline is important for those who for those who are going to be surgeon and traumatologist, orthopedist, because they manage with the muscles very often, and muscles is also important to understand movement and biomechanical principles of the body, of the human body. Okay, if so and you hear me clear, well, let's switch to the lecture. And I will start with words and saying that our life is movement. It's hard to imagine what life would be like without muscles, tissue. We could not sit, stand, walk, speak, and grab objects. The blood did not circulate in the body because there would be no heart to move it through the vessel, because heart is also consisted of the muscle tissue. The lungs could not rhythmically fill with air, and even in the digestive tract there would be no movement along any of our internal organs. And as I told you before, this lecture will be about myology. Myology, this is a term coming from the myo means muscle, and logy is study of. It is Greek terms. And here you see three types of muscle tissue in our body. There are skeletal tissue. Here is skeletal. All skeletal muscles, all muscles which move our body and connect to the skeleton bones, called skeletal. It consists of skeletal muscle tissue. It is quite popular tissue in the body. Next is smooth muscle tissue, which we see in the wall of internal organ like intestine here. And the heart consists of cardiac muscle tissue. What is the difference between? Skeletal muscle tissue is so named because the function of most skeletal muscles is to move bones. Skeletal muscle tissue is referred to as striated because alternating light, here you see alternating light and dark protein bands or striations are visible when the tissue is examined under a microscope. Skeletal muscle tissue works primarily in a voluntary manner, and we consciously understand how to move it, and we manage all of skeleton muscles consciously. Cardiac muscle tissue is found only in the heart, where it forms most of the heart wall. That is the main tissue in this very important organ of the circulation system. Like skeletal muscles, cardiac muscles is striated. You see striated, dark and light strips, but its action is involuntary. We couldn't manage or send order to our heart how often it should to contract. It's also called alternating contraction, and relaxation cannot be consciously controlled. Smooth muscle tissue, this is the third but the oldest tissue in the evolution, is located in the walls of hollow internal structures such as the blood vessels, airways, and most organs in the abdominopelvic cavity, stomach, esophagus, duodenum, intestinum tenue, and intestinum crussum. All of these organs have smooth muscles in their walls. This smooth muscle tissue is also attached to hair follicles in the skin, and the smooth muscle tissue gets its name from the fact that under a microscope it appears non-striated. You don't see striated here because there is no striated, and very important feature of this tissue is that it's usually involuntary, and we can't control its contraction. So now you know three main muscular tissue in our body. What function all muscular tissue we see? First of all, it's producing body movements, total body movements such as walking and running, and localized movements such as grasping a pencil, keyboarding, or raising your hand, rely on the integrated function of skeletal muscles, bones, and joints. Second function is stabilizing body position. Skeletal muscles contractions stabilize joints and help maintain body position, such as standing or sitting or even lying. Postural muscles contract continuously when you are awake. For example, sustained contractions in neck muscles hold your head upright when you are listening intently to an anatomy lecture, like now. You are sitting and holding your head, but your muscles, all muscles of the body and neck are contracting now. The third function is storing and moving substances within the body. Sustained contractions or ring-like bands of smooth muscles called sphincters may prevent outflow of the contents of our hollow organs. Temporary storage of food in the stomach or urine in the urinary bladder is possible because smooth muscles, sphincters, close off. The outlets of these organs are closed, and it helps to mostly to digestive system and for urinary system. Cardiac muscles contract, pump blood through the body's blood vessels. Contraction and relaxation of smooth muscles in the walls of blood vessels help adjust their diameter and thus regulate the rate of blood flow. Smooth muscles contraction also move food and substances such as the bile and enzymes through the gastrointestinal tract, push gametes like sperm and oocyte through the reproductive system, and propel urine through the urinary system. Skeletal muscles contraction indirectly promote the flow of lymph throughout the body and aid the return of blood in veins to the heart. Of course, you know when it's cold, when the weather is cold, like today in St. Petersburg, movement of skeletal muscle can produce heat. As muscular tissue contract, it also produces heat. A process called thermogenesis is, in other words, producing heat. Much of the heat released by muscles is used to maintain normal body temperature. Involuntary contraction of skeletal muscles, known as shivering, can dramatically increase the rate of heat production. So there are four main functions of muscular tissue in the organisms. Famous expressions about muscles belong to great Russian physiologist Ivan Sechenov. Sechenov said, "Does a child laugh at the sight of a toy Does Garibaldi, is a famous leader, Italian leader, smile when they lead him to execution for exercise life for his homeland? Does a girl tremble at the first thought of love? Does Newton create and write the laws of the world? Everywhere, the last fact is muscle movement. That is a very famous expression. And I like also this one. Thoughts is a reflex inhibited in its motor path. It means in muscles. So when we thought, we just generate ideas, but don't realize them in skeletal muscles. That is Ivan Sechenov. Very wise, and very famous Russian physiologist. What is the main properties of muscular tissue? There are 4 of them here. Electrical excitability, a property of both muscles and nerve cells, is the ability to respond to certain stimuli by producing electrical signals called action potential. And that is the, in other words, that is the reaction of muscles to electrical signals coming from nervous tissue, from the nervous fibers. Second, contractility. Contractility is the ability of muscular tissue to contract forcefully when stimulated by an action potential. So it is main function of the muscular tissue. Extensibility is the ability of muscular tissue to stretch within limits without being damaged. So contraction and extensibility is the also features of normal muscular tissue. And of course, elasticity is the ability of muscular tissue to return to its original length and shape, and after contraction or extension. And this is the feature of the life of the alive muscular tissue, because when muscular cells are dried and degenerated, the elasticity disappears. This comparative characteristics of smooth and skeletal muscles tissue, and let's characterize the differences between smooth muscles and skeletal muscles, because those muscular tissue are most popular. As you see, smooth muscles, fiber length of it's the length of the one smooth muscle cells is only 50 microns, but skeletal muscles fiber may be up to 12 centimeters. So it's huge fibers in comparison with the smooth muscle cells. Fiber thickness is 6 micron, but skeletal muscles fiber is up to 100 microns. It's it is in 15, about 15 times more. Usually, each smooth muscle cells have only one nucleus, but skeletal muscle fibers have got up to 120 nucleus in one fibers. It means that skeletal muscles fiber we may call multi-nucleus structure, because there are a lot of nucleus inside of one fibers. Innervation is all smooth muscle tissue is innervated by autonomic nervous system. That is old, ancient system, nervous system in the body. But in comparison, the skeletal muscle tissue has innervation from somatic nervous systems. It is a new evolutionary new type of or part of the central nervous systems, and as you see below, the contraction type of smooth muscles because of autonomic nervous system, it is involuntary, and it means we could not consciously control the smooth muscle tissue, but in opposite, the somatic nervous system is controlled by the cortex, by the brain, and we can contract the skeletal muscles voluntarily. Usually, skeletal muscle tissue forms only skeletal muscles, and sometimes it is the part of organ located in the beginning or in the end digestive tract, like tongue, like pharynx, like rectum, and this part of organ or all organs having skeletal muscles contract voluntarily, but the body location of smooth muscle tissue is more than skeletal ones, and we find smooth muscle tissue in internal organs, vascular walls, and even in skin. That is the main characteristic. It was main characteristics of smooth and skeletal muscle tissue. Skeletal muscles is the focus of our today lecture. We would like I don't want to tell you about all muscles, skeletal muscles in the body, because there are about 640 muscles in our body, and there are 317 muscles are paired, and only 5 there are 5 unpaired muscles in the muscular systems. As you see, the muscle mass of a newborn is not more than 20% of the total body weight. And then when we become older and when we are adult, it's about 40% of the body weight in male body, and a little bit less in female. And we get old, and when we get seniors, the total skeletal muscles weight is reduced. Usually seniors have 30% of the total body weight, which is for skeletal muscles. And then sometimes athletes and intense physical activity may increase the percent of muscles up to 60% of body weight. That is a general characteristic of the skeletal muscles. Despite the diversity, all muscles have a roughly similar structure plan. As you see here, each muscles has at least two parts. One tendon. This is a part of muscles which is joint and which is joints to the bones, and we call it tendons. And between tendons we find the parts consist of the skeletal muscles tissue and called belly. Sometimes belly is sometimes there are 2 or 3 belly in one muscles. Sometimes tendon has the plain structure and it looks like flat tendon. Sometimes the shape of belly is round, and sometimes it's wide shape, but more or less we can see these two parts of skeletal muscles in almost in every skeletal muscles organs. Every muscles move the joint, move on joints because it contract and has influence of the joints. Usually two articulating bones don't move equally in response to contraction. One bone remains stationary or near its original position, either because other muscles stabilize that bone by contracting and pulling in the opposite direction, or because its structure makes it less movable. Originally, the attachment of a muscle tendon to the stationary bone is called the origin. Let's take an example. Here you see the bone called humerus, this one. And we see the muscles we call belly, we call biceps brachii muscles here, and it connect to the humerus, and humerus stays stationary, but another bone called radius, where biceps is joined here, this is the point, and by contraction of the biceps belly, the movements start in the elbow joints, and radius moves, but humerus stays unmovable. And usually we call the point of the origin stabilizing bone, we call it origin, and the attachment of muscles with the other tendon to the radius, to the movable bone, is called insertion. That is insertion here, and also we see in triceps, in other muscles, on the posterior surface, the posterior part of the humerus. This is the origins, and here is the insertion. Sometimes the insertion point and the origin point are changed. For example, when we hang on the tree and try to sometimes we stand on the hand and try to flex our arms, and then when we make it back straight, and this is usually we change origins and insertion points in the muscles. Some of you who play sport, they know this origin and insertion point. And usually when we study muscles, we have to understand their origin and insertion points. Tendon is a collection of intramuscular connective tissue. in the form of a dense cord that attaches the muscles to the bone or to the cartilage. Here you see two types of the attaching, of the muscle attaching. This is the attaching to the bone, and usually tendon fibers, connective tissue fibers. They have relation with the periosteum, and some of them penetrated periosteum and are fixed in the bone, in compact bone tissue. But another connections of the muscles is to the cartilage, because it's also penetrate in cartilage, but have special spring or cartilage cells between fibers of the tendon, and it helps to keep the collagen fibers separated from each other, because of such as because of the intersected position of cartilage cells. Tendon is very strong structure, but some of tendons in our body can withstand a force of up to 600 kilograms. Unfortunately, with the huge forces, the tendon may be teared, like here you see the Achilles tendon is damaged, and it causes a lot of problems, and usually we have to avoid such maximal forces in our body, because it may lead to the injuring of the tendons. Here you see electronical photograph of the triceps tendon, and you see the long and huge fibers having collagen. This is collagen fibers in Achilles tendons, and this is a visible intersection or transverse connection between the main fibers, which form the tendon compacted and help to contract without problem, because this transverse section usually consists of some of elastic fibers. What is the inner structure of the skeletal muscles? Let's see on this good image coming from the international student book. we see that each skeletal muscles is a separate organ composed of tens muscles fascicles. If we cut the muscles, we see different layers which form the total muscles. First of all, we see the total muscles. For example, the one of the forearm muscles called brachioradial muscles, and here you see the inside of muscles. We see hundreds to thousands muscle cells, also called muscle fibers, and connective tissue surround muscle fibers and whole muscles, but those layers have different name. External layers forming the muscle's shape we call epimysium. This is usually epimysium has some of the septum coming in through the muscles and separate a group of muscles, and this separated layer we call perimysium. Usually it combines different muscles fiber together, but if we see if we take a look inside, we see also the small groups of the muscle tissue which are covered by endomysium. So let's repeat again. The external layer of the skeletal muscles we call epimysium. That is general covering. And then we see perimysium, which forms the layers of separated muscle fibers combining in muscle fascicles, but small group of muscular fibers have also layer named endomysium. There are three types of connective tissue surrounding muscular fibers. Epimysium, the general, and the minimal, and the microstructure layers called endomysium. I hope you understand what I just talked about. This is the picture. Also another picture of the layers, whole muscles with the epimysium. You see it's here. Then fascicle have perimysium, epimysium, perimysium, and separated group of the muscular fibers surrounded by endomysium. Inside of this group we find myofibril. That is the structural functional unit of the muscles. What is the microscopic organization of the muscular tissue? At high magnification, the muscle fiber appears stuffed with the little threads. These small structures are the contractile elements of skeletal muscles. They produce contraction. We call them myofibrils. So this one, it is a minimal part of the skeleton muscles called myofibrils. Myofibrils usually are about 2 micrometer in diameter and extend the entire length of the muscular fibers. They have prominent striations that make the whole muscles fiber look striped. As you see here, inside of myofibrils, we could find protein sets or proteins groups which make the muscular fibers striped. And if we take a look inside of the myofibril muscular fibers, we see two type of proteins. This combination of smaller protein structures are called filaments or myofilaments. Thin filaments are about 8 nanometers in diameter and from 1 to 2 micrometers long, and composed mostly of the protein actin. As you see here is the actin. Usually it's red structures. Here is visible. All of red structure are actin filaments, and blue filaments we call myosin, and this is the correct term, myosin of actin filaments. Actin filaments connect each other, and they I may say that both thin and thick filaments are directly involved in the contraction process. Overall, there are 2 thin filaments for every thick filaments in the regions of filament overlap. The filaments inside a myofibril don't extend the entire length of a muscle fiber. Instead, they are arranged in compartments called sarcomeres. sarcomeres, or in other words, this one is a sarcomere. This is the right term here, and that is the basic functional unit of a myofibril. As I said, narrow plate-shaped regions of dense protein material called Z disc. Here is the Z disc. Separate one sarcomere from the next. Thus, a sarcomere extends from one Z disc to the next Z disc, or Z line, as you hear. We can say that sarcomere is the part between two Z disc in the muscular fibers. Supporting proteins that hold the thick filaments together at the center of the H zone or H band forms the M line. This is the M line, so named because it's at the middle of the sarcomere. M line means located in the center, in the middle. The darker middle part of the sarcomeres is the A band with each band inside. The I band is the lighter, less dense area that contains thin filaments but no thick filaments. How it works? Usually in the myosin filaments, there is myosin head, which produce contraction when actin filaments by this head it moves like it's shown here, and located between actin filaments with the contraction of myosin heads, all of muscles produce energy. Here visible the contraction process. Thick filaments, myosin, contract the heads, and the actin filaments moved into in the direction of M lines, and usually the contracted muscles have another image than uncontracted. Usually, when the muscles is totally contracted, that the length of the sarcomeres is less than by relaxed when we see in the relaxed muscles. The neurons, I noted earlier in the lecture that all muscles contracted by the electrical signals coming from the nervous tissue. Neurons stimulates neurons stimulate skeletal muscle fibers to contract, and these neurons are called somatic motor neurons. Each somatic motor neurons has a thread-like axon that extends from the brain, or sometimes from spinal cord, to a group of skeletal muscle fibers, and it's named myon, motor unit. How it looks like? This is the somatic motor neurons, is axons, which form such terminals, axon terminals between muscular fibers and nerves, and the electrical signals coming from the nerve transfer to the muscle fibers, and muscle fibers start to contract. So it's like signals come in the synaptic end bulb and transform into the inside of fibers, and it start to contract. That is typical process which we produce by moving. Muscle fibers contracts in response to one or more action potential, electrical potential, propagating along its sarcolemma and through its systems of T-tubules. Here you see the structure of neuromuscular junction and the synapses between a somatic motor neuron and skeletal muscle fibers. This is the axon, and its end on the muscle fibers we call presynaptic membrane, and then this is the postsynaptic membrane, and between them is synaptic cleft, which contain some of the neuromediator. Here is the bubbles of neuromediator, and they open, and chemical structure called mediators come to the receptor on the postsynaptic membrane, and here the state the electrical signal. In other words, when electrical nerve impulse come into the synapses, it stimulates to open off the bubbles with the neuromediator. It comes into the synaptic cleft and stimulate receptors on the postsynaptic membrane, and then after that process the electrical signals transfer to the muscle fibers, and it start to contract. So such contacts or such junctions, we call it neuromuscular junctions, are typical for all skeletal muscles. Yes, regarding of the quantity of fibers connected to one neuron and to one axon, we distinguish two types of skeletal muscles. First one, we call them dynamic muscles. The number of muscle fibers for one myon is not more than 25 per one nerve fiber, but usually such muscles are very good manipulated, and we control this contraction with the good results, is a good manipulated muscles. But some of muscles, like muscles in the our legs, they have up to 230 numbers of muscles fibers in one, related to the one neurofibers, and we call such muscles slow or static muscles. So dynamic muscles and static muscles are different because of the different type of myon. Here also visible white fibers muscles with less fibers to one neuron, but red fibers muscles, they have huge of the muscle fibers to one neurons. We call them slow fibers and fast fibers. This is a difference. Here you see functional clinical significance of skeletal muscles, as that is mostly related to the social and clinical significance of skeletal muscles here. And couple of words about muscle classification. We can classify or distinguish muscles by shape, region, function, and origin. Let's start classification by shape, and we distinguish fusiform, biceps, digastric when have two belly separated by the tendon, broad muscles, multibelly muscles, unipinnate, and even bipinnate muscles. So as you see, muscles can have different shapes. We distinguish also long muscles when the length is 2 times more than the width. Typical long muscles is biceps of brachii. This is also triceps. They located in the humerus and in the leg. Long muscles also is quadriceps femoris. Usually we call football players muscles because it is very good visible on the lower limb of the football players. Broad muscles, they have flayed and plan structure, and usually such muscles have aponeurosis, which means flat tendon of such muscles. The short muscles located on the back, and they are involved in the rotation. This one, and this one, all of these short muscles, because their length is 2 times less than the width. Pinnate muscles, unipinnate, bipinnate, and multipinnate, located mostly on the forearm and the leg. another shape may be square, triangle, like here, or serrated. They have some serrates connected to the ribs. Deltoid shape of muscles located on the shoulder joint, sometimes around eyes, but not sometimes, always circular muscles located around eyes and mouth. Usually when muscles developed from multiple myotomes, they have intermediate tendons like musculus omohyoides on the neck. Functional muscle classification. We distinguish flexors, extensors, abductors, adductors, rotators, sphincters, and even dilatators. This is the all group of muscles which produce proper contraction. How muscles work? They evaluate. They are evaluated by the physiological muscle diameter. The more diameter the muscles have, then the more strong they are. The more the strong is bigger than the physiological diameter. What does it mean? This physiological diameter means the section the square of all muscular fibers in one part of the muscles, and sometimes we have the equal anatomical and physiological section, but sometimes in the bipineal muscles that physiological section may be bigger than anatomical ones. Some muscles contract together and we call them synergist muscles, but sometimes the contraction, one muscle produce flexion, and another muscle produces extension. Such muscles group involved in oppositely directed movements we call antagonists. That is the illustration of different levers we have in the body. There are three types of levers. First one is the this is the speed lever, which located it's the typically the lever we have on the upper limb. The distance between point of rotation in the elbow joints and insertion point of the muscles is less than the distance between the load and the center of rotation. such levers we usually have, we call it third class lever, and we have high speed but less power of muscles. Opposite lever we call second class lever, and that is the distance of the muscles contraction is bigger than distance of the body weight force. And sometimes we have the muscle works in the first class lever when the distance of the muscle power is almost the same than the distance of the weight power. Three types of muscle activity. Static work may be when muscles support various posture and body position. In this case, the length of the muscles does not change. The overcoming work when the muscles overcome the weight of a body part or external force. And yielding work in which a muscle is stretched by external forces, like when we can't fix the forearm, and this is a stretched or yielding work. Each muscles have muscle assistants like a fascia and connective tissue surround the muscles, and fascia protects the muscles, save the strength of the contracting muscles, and eliminate the friction of the contracting muscles. It is the main function. Almost all muscles have fascia. Fibrosis and osteofibrosis canals just keep the tendon close to the bones, and they are surround and fixed the tendon near to the bone. Synovial sheath reduces the friction when the tendon move inside of such channels. Some of muscles have special anatomical structure called bursae between tendons and surfaces of the joints, and it's also reduce frictions. And sometimes we find sesamoid bones like here, or this is the patella in the knee region, which usually increase the angle of attachment of muscles of bone. Muscles development. There are some of the myotomes. This is a group of the somatic, and mostly all muscles in our body have origin from the myotomes, and this group of mesoderm located between the skin of the embryon and its neuron tube. Here you see myotomes located in the human embryo about 5 weeks. This is all of these strips are myotomes that will be transformed in muscles, in different type of muscles in our body. And the last section of our lecture is muscles of head and neck. First group of head muscles is facial muscles. They are located on the head, usually on the face, on our face, and they have only one point connection with the bones, but the second point, almost all of the facial muscles connect to the skin. So they start from the bone but connect into the skin and move skin. Sometimes they move also some part of our face. The second group of head muscles is masticatory muscles. They contract and move the lower jaw. So they help to this group of muscles help us to eat because these muscles give us they give the possibility to bite food. There are 4 in comparison with the facial muscles. There are a lot of facial muscles on the head. There are only 4 masticatory muscles, and we call them temporal, then masseter muscles. This one is lateral pterygoid muscles and medial pterygoid muscles. They are located behind of the ramus of the lower jaw. Neck muscles located on the neck, and we distinguish superficial neck muscles. This is the sternocleidomastoid, and the second is the trapezius muscles, and also one of the muscles located under the skin, we call it platysma. Neck muscles, middle group, this is the first group of neck muscles. We call it middle group. All muscles from this group are connected to the hyoid bone. So we distinguish the suprahyoid group and infrahyoid group of these bones. And the third group of neck muscles is the deep muscles of the neck. It's located on the surface of the vertebral column, or they may start from the ribs and connect to the processus transversus. They are located quite deep on the neck. That's all information I wanted to share with you, and as usual, I prepared the test for all of you, and you find this test in the Moodle. Don't forget to pass this test today. It will be open till 19, so you have enough time to answer 8 questions from this test. If you have another questions, I am open and ready to answer. If you haven't if you haven't question now, you can send me, you can email me your question, and I will, or put it in our forum. Okay, that's all for now. I am thank you for your attention, and let's see you next week, just before the new year. I wish you good luck in the test, and wish you a good day. Thank you.